Hey everybody, how you doing? It's me, ReZsaun, back with Real Talk Live. We are doing our local celebrity spotlight with Anjene Davis, Mr. AJ Davis himself. And I'm really excited about this show today because it's get to talk about something that's near and dear to my heart, which is education. Those who know me know that I am a teacher, so I'm dealing with the students every day. And it's always awesome to hear from people who are not only educated, but are willing to express to people, the things that are going on based on data, based on facts, based on research, as opposed to just based on random opinions. So today we're going to be sharing with Anjene, Mr. AJ. AJ, can I call you AJ?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll be sharing with AJ. We'll be sharing some information with us that he's researched and he's found. And please feel free to leave your questions or any comments that you have down here, and we'll make sure we get to them. I want to start off by thanking you for coming on the show. Thank you so much, man.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. So first of all, let's get started. Who is AJ Davis? How did we get here? Like, who are you and where are you from, kind of thing?
I'm a simple person. Moved here to Charleston probably 16 years ago. Immediately threw myself into community development, community activism, if you will. Education and youth was always my focus. And just working in the nonprofit arena first outside of the school system kind of led me to realizing that I needed to understand kind of what was happening to the kids that were coming into the programs that I ran. Mm-hmm. So I started trying to track some of the educational data to figure out, okay, well, in what ways can I improve my program and also help the kids from an academic perspective? So that's kind of the gist of how I came into being someone that valued educational research.
Wow. Okay. So now I heard you mention that you worked with some programs. What are some programs that you worked with?
I used to work for an organization called Berkeley Dorchester Economic Development and their youth development programming. I also worked for an organization in North Charleston called Metanoia. Mm-hmm. Both were great organizations. Metanoia is actually doing tremendous work in the Shakur Cherokee community with Reverend Bill Stanfield. And then when I transitioned into the public school system for Charleston County, I began working with the 21st Century / Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Boys and Girls Club in Charleston is no longer in existence, so I transitioned over into full 21st Century, which is an after-school program designed to help kids in struggling schools. And so then I transitioned into a different position from that as the auditorium coordinator for Burke High School. Okay. In that, I don't touch the students as much as I once did. However, through apprenticeships and internship opportunities, I engage with some of the students who are interested in learning the audio-visual aspects of auditorium management.
Oh wow! Okay, well that's a lot. And again, thank you to everybody who's watching. This is AJ Davis. We're talking about things that's going on in education. We're just forming a basis, and then we're going to go from there as far as the discussion goes. But again, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. We'll be sure to get to them. So you're at Burke. That's gotta be an interesting study in human society, just because I know I'm from North Charleston, so I went to North Charleston High. Go Cougars! You know what it is. So to talk, first of all, just to be talking, my students know I talked when Burke played North Charleston last year. It was a big deal, and I told my students, like, you have to understand, if y'all from Somerville, y'all don't get this. Right. But like Burke North Charleston is a big deal. Right. But as far as what's going on down there economically, and what's going on with the way the schools is being molded, what are your thoughts about the way things are going there right now?
Well, first let me say that I'm a Bulldog through and through, even though I didn't take any classes there. Okay. Since I've been on that campus has really transformed my opinion and viewpoints as it relates to education. Burke has had a tremendous history that I think a lot of people aren't aware of.
Definitely.
And I think that Burke represents not just for the alumni, but the Black community in the Charleston area. I agree. So much as an institution that has empowered generations of leaders and activists and people who have gone on to do great things. Mm-hmm. Having the opportunity to work there has also allowed me to see what happens when people take their eyes off the prize.
Wow, yeah.
For all the rich and storied history that Burke currently has, I think most people kind of reserve it to be in the dustbin of history. Mm. We'll see people who will say, yeah, I'm a Burke Bulldog, but they're always speaking of when they were there.
Right. Yes.
as opposed
Yes.
to keeping the legacy of what that school has meant to them alive in the present generations. The teaching staff there definitely has gone through a share of changes. We have a wonderful new leader in Mrs. Swinton. We've had previous great leaders. The one that I came into the school under was Mr. Maurice Cannon, also a good leader in his own right. But I think Burke, because of the lack of continuity in the alumni and community support, has fallen victim to what many majority Black schools have fallen victim to.
I agree. And I would say probably the same. You could probably say the exact same thing from North Charleston now.
Exactly.
And that's what I sort of want to take this discussion today. Is so let's get into the research. So what made you want to do that? Go dig deeper beyond the face value of the research for education.
Well, we live in the social media generation.
Yes.
So social media allows for folks to be able to have an opinion and to broadcast that opinion, and that's fine in its own right. But working in the nonprofit arena first, where your funding is dependent upon what you can prove. You can prove things by having data. I decided that when I started looking at education, not just going off of opinions and innuendo, I decided to see what did the numbers say or not say. And so I just started looking at when people would say, well, Black students aren't achieving. Okay, is that true?
Right.
Then the next part of that is why? What are some of the contributing factors? So I looked to see what data was out there. And one of the things that I did find was that there is indeed an achievement gap between Black and white students. I think South Carolina, as a result of the Schott Foundation's report on Black Lives Matter, Black male achievement in the United States, their most recent collected data was from 2012-2013 that showed South Carolina as a state had a graduation rate for Black males of about 51%. That was actually the lowest between the three identified groups: Black males, Latino males, and white males. Latino males were graduating at 61%, and white males were graduating at 67%.
Wow.
So here we have to look at, and that really kind of encapsulated my desire to go further, because here we have a Latino or Hispanic population that in many cases may even be first generation. And many of these individuals have come forward and surpassed native-born African Americans.
Wow.
So I wanted to make sure that I understood what were the factors that may surround that, and then the next step would be, what can I do with that?
Okay, so speaking on the factors, what do you see in your research? What have you found to be some of those determining factors that have led us to this place?
Access, or I guess you could say preparation in the early part of students' education. And I think that's universal for all students, but especially Black students, especially those in lower income backgrounds.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I mean having good pre-K programs or access to pre-K programs, which help develop fundamental reading and literacy skills as well as numeracy. Many of our kids start kindergarten, with kindergarten being arguably the first formal academic environment.
I agree. Yes.
So kindergarten teachers oftentimes find themselves trying to catch students up.
Right.
Also based on standards and criteria that many parents were never aware existed.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two is just attitudes towards learning.
Right.
I think having several friends who are teachers both in the elementary, middle, and high school levels, one of the biggest issues that I think we collectively see is that many students don't have the proper attitude towards learning. They go to class every day, maybe. They may participate, but in terms of them taking what they're doing seriously and understanding how they learn, I don't see that. And then that kind of has a snowball effect that if you don't take it seriously in your primary and elementary school grades, you're not just automatically going to turn it around in middle school.
Right.
And you're definitely not going to turn it around in high school.
Absolutely. And that's, as a teacher, as somebody who's in the classroom, that's something I try to explain to my students all the time, is that nobody that's great at anything starts being great at it in high school.
Right.
You know, you don't just decide, well, I'm never going to pick up a basketball, but in 9th grade, I'm going to pick up a basketball for the first time and make it to the NBA.
Right.
You can't decide, okay, I'm not going to listen first through kindergarten through 4th grade, 5th grade, and then in 6th grade, I'm going to turn it on and become this great student. Like, no, and I try to, this is something that is so key. And I'm so glad you're finding that data actually matches these things. I know, especially, I heard good friend Shakim Atet, he always talks about the fact that there are students in high school, African American students in high school that are reading at a 4th grade level. How does that happen?
Based on what I said previously, so as a teacher, you get access to your student data. You understand how to, interpret that, and then you build your teaching lesson plans around it.
Yeah.
But what many people in the public also don't realize is that as a teacher, you're also held to a certain standard that you must teach to kind of guide the student learning process.
Yes, yes.
A lot of folks in the community aren't as well aware of what that jargon means.
Mm-hmm.
And also, many parents and guardians don't understand what their role is in that.
Right.
So when we say that a student is in high school and they don't know how to read, that's because they came to high school not knowing how to read.
Right.
So going back to my original statement, if they're not prepared in elementary and middle school,
mm-hmm.
and their parent or guardian is not aware
mm-hmm.
of what it is that they are and are not efficient in,
mm-hmm.
they can't necessarily push for help. I think another thing, because for a time I was a parent advocate there in Charleston County, one of the other most frustrating factors I think parents experience is seeing one thing written on a student report card and then hearing later on when they get their assessments, but your student is still behind.
Right.
That's one of the most confusing things we do as a state and as an institution being education, that we kind of send mixed signals. So if I'm a parent and I'm sitting there, my kid is making A's and B's, or even B's and C's,
mm-hmm.
I'm thinking they're doing okay.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how this assessment,
mm-hmm.
whether it's SC ready or SC pass,
mm-hmm.
also determines what their level is as well.
Right.
I'm going, most of us are built to look at report card grades, and that's all we focus on. Not knowing the fact that our kid can be passing, supposedly by the report card, but still be deficient in those courses.
I mean, and if you look at it, I mean, again, as a person who's in the classroom, like, and this is the way I'm so glad that you're as grounded in data, because there's probably somebody's going to watch this video and say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, he's not in the classroom. This man is saying everything he's saying based on data. So please understand that A.J. Davis is not here giving you his opinions or his thoughts or anything like that. This man has spent countless amounts of hours, years, finding this information to bring and provide. That's why I brought him on the show. So I'm definitely, once again, thankful for A.J. Anjene Davis for coming on the show today and talking about this. But like I was saying, as a teacher in the classroom, those are things that I see, is that, one, I remember when I was a kid, we get the report card, and they would put that little paper in there, those BSAP when I was in school.
Right.
And I didn't know what that meant, so I threw that away.
Right.
And I said, hey, Mom, I got A's on my report card. Now, that thing could have been, that other paper could have been saying, you are one of the worst readers in the state.
Right.
But I have no idea what that means. Why aren't we putting the emphasis on parents being able to read that document and understand it?
That's something that I've had a tremendous amount of time and energy trying to decipher myself. So Charleston County, and I would imagine maybe some other counties, I'm not sure with Dorchester, Charleston County had a position in its organizational portfolio called Parent Advocate, Parent Liaison. So usually you saw those in Title I schools. Title I schools are schools that struggle academically. They attribute that struggle to rates of poverty. Now, that's not to say that just because the school is poor, the students are doomed to perform poorly. It just means that the Department of Education on the federal level recognizes some of the barriers and obstacles that teachers and schools may face when teaching students who are in poverty. So I don't want to insinuate that just because the school is poor, they're going to perform poorly.
Right.
But they had the position of parent advocate, parent liaison, which is designed to do exactly what we're talking about and help parents navigate and understand some of the complexities of what happens when you get these test scores. And to break it down, if I'm a parent and I'm working all day, 7 days a week sometimes, the last thing I really want to do is try to wrap my head around some complex document with data in it that I don't understand for myself.
Right.
So these positions were supposed to help parents with that. Unfortunately, they were tied to Title I funding. Title I funding is a limited amount of money that each school gets. And oftentimes, principals and administrators, when given the choice of whether or not they want to have a parent advocate or liaison and say an additional teacher or reading interventionist or reading coach, of course they're going to go with the academic focus. And in theory, I can't necessarily blame them. However, I do push the issue with school districts because as teachers, I feel you need to have the burden of the interaction with parents in terms of explaining certain things taken off you due to what you already have on your plates. So as teachers, you're expected to pretty much assess your students, understand where they are, develop teaching lesson plans for your whole class and individual students, and explain that information to parents.
Yeah, that's a lot.
As well as make sure that you teach your classes every day. Personally, we're in the 21st century. Education has changed from when many of us were in school. So with the amount of things that are put on teachers, I feel like there should be a designated person in each school to do that job, explaining that information, taking questions and comments, and then interacting with you as a teacher so that you don't have to worry about contacting 20 different parents. Now, there are some teachers who say I can do that, and that's fine. But when you look at what South Carolina is facing, especially with new teachers and teachers who may be struggling with classroom management and all those things, I still feel like it's a better investment to have an individual that can work outside of the classroom to help parents who are wanting to be engaged and know more about how their students are learning and not burden teachers or administrators, that, for that matter, who need to be focusing on educating their kids.
I agree totally. I want to pivot a little bit because we talked about the success rate of graduation for African American males as opposed to Hispanics or Caucasian males. The disconnect there. We spoke about the fact that many kids, especially kids who are growing up in poverty, are maybe coming to the school with that first idea of what academia even is. Like I'm learning my ABCs in kindergarten. Like, how early should you be teaching your kids those types of things according to the data? Just
we need to be reading to our kids in the womb, which many people do. But I would say, honestly, the earlier you can start exposing your kids to just basic reading concepts, just reading to your kids, like our parents did. Our parents didn't have this research-based approach. They just did what their parents may have done to them, and that is read. Kids from an early age mimic what they see. So if our kids never see us read, and then we send them to a school where they're expected to read, or they're expected to at least be prepared to read, we have not done our job as parents, preparing them. It's not that I think teachers want to have kids reading on a certain level, although the data says, well, according to this, you should, but at least have kids who are fundamentally ready to be taught how they can read. Because I think in the same vein, it's kind of hard because every kid does not learn the same. I know we use the various assessment methods, Fontes and Pinnell and things like that, but sometimes teachers in the kindergarten level have to take kids where they are. But if those kids are prepared and they're familiar with reading, sitting in a chair, learning how to listen when instructions are given, those are the basics that go outside of literacy. If teachers are given that, I feel like then we can have much more success in terms of getting kids ready to be where they need to be.
Wow, that's definitely. And so, with that being said, do you think, and this is something I'm a big believer in, sometimes we got to call ourselves out. In order to uplift ourselves, in order to uplift the whole group, sometimes we got to call things out. What is the disconnect with us? And you know what I mean by us.
In my opinion, education academics takes a backseat to athletics, takes a backseat to entertainment, it takes a backseat to a lot of things where we don't believe that in many cases focusing on education will get you where you need to be.
Right.
And I've done this myself, I'm not sure if you've done it in your classroom. If you ask a kid in elementary schools, take a classroom full of black males or black females and ask them what they want to be. Just take the percentage that's going to say they want to be a professional athlete, whether it be basketball or football. They may name a name or whatever. And I don't begrudge those kids anymore. I don't hold that against them because honestly, I know why. In our society, what's the most prominent positions you see black males celebrated in? Athletics or entertainment.
Absolutely.
Black males as a whole, when we had a black president, the ironic part about all of that is it was oftentimes our own community that criticized him the most. Instead of celebrating it, it's like all of a sudden folks became these political experts who had said nothing about politics. So now they were critiquing every move this man made instead of just acknowledging the fact that this is one step. This was not going to be the end all be all. But then if you look at black males as a microcosm of our community, black males oftentimes are not shown that they can be anything but. We enroll our kids in either rec league or school level athletics. Once they show a bit of promise on the field or court, we go to their games, we cheer them on, as we should as parents. I don't begrudge anybody that does that. I want to make that clear. But how many of us celebrate our kids in spelling bees? How many of our kids are in spelling bees? How many of our kids participate in science fairs or STEM fairs, as they are called now? How many of our kids are in robotics? Chess clubs? These are the things that expand beyond the athletic field. But how many of our kids actually see that as something that's cool, something that is enjoyable, something that will get them the same level of support as if they were running up and down the field or a court?
I agree totally. We actually just with Stevens Gentlemen's Club, we just had a mentoring program. We just had
some mentoring.
We had a career expo, and I actually started the career expo with this statement. I asked the kids, I said, okay, there's a career expo. Now we have about 20 guys here to present to you. I said, now I want to ask each of you guys. I asked the kids. I said, well, how many of you guys want to be, when you grow up, you want to be an NBA player or an NFL player? Raise your hand. Raise their hand. A lot of hands went up, right? So now I said, okay, gentlemen who are presenting here today, if you are in the NBA, the NFL, MLB, the NHL, even playing minor league, raise your hand. Not one hand went up. So with that being said, we're not talking about those careers. Also understand this. The average NBA career is 3 to 4 years. The average NFL career is 2 to 3 years. So even if you make it to the NFL or NBA, you're still going to have to do something. So let's talk about that career that you'd be looking into once you finish your NBA or NFL career. That career that you can prepare yourself for starting right now when you finish your NBA or NFL career. And from there, we're able to have that discussion. Because even when they say, well, I'm going to be a basketball player. Okay, cool. Then what you going to do after you finish? Because now I'm not shooting. Because I think that's where we get stuck a lot of times. Is we don't want to shoot down their dreams. And you don't want to shoot down your kids. My son, he wants to do things. But I tell him all the time, like, look, son, we probably not going to the NBA, son. Your daddy's 5'10". You know what I mean? Like, I got little handles. You know what I'm saying? I can do my thing on the court. But I'm not NBA material. And we can push you, but I'd rather push you, like you said, to win a spelling bee. I'd rather push you to Lego robotics. I'd rather push you to go out and get an internship. These are the things that I'd rather push you towards doing. When you're 16 years old, I'd rather you not get a job. My daughter just got a job. Sorry, my daughter just got a job. And I told her, like, look, you don't need to get a job. When I was growing up, I got a job because I felt like I needed a job. You don't need a job. You can go to school, play basketball, get your academics. That's all I care about. And honestly, if we can only get one, then academics it is.
Right.
Basketball is cool. Even we're talking about college. My daughter's 17. She'll be 17 next week. You just saw her walking by. Hey, so she's like, well, I'm like, what college do you want to go to? Someplace I can play basketball. Go someplace you can get an education.
Right.
Go someplace where you can get a degree that you're going to use to get a job or to start your own business. Like to whatever it is you plan on achieving, use the education for that. That's why this discussion is so important, because there are some parents out there that may be thinking to themselves, you know what, I'm going to put all these eggs in this athletics basket, and you know, and we're going to be good there.
Right.
How often does that happen?
It happens more often than I think people want to acknowledge, and you even see people going back and forth on social media talking about that, saying, well, we're not always, every black student or every black male is not going to go to the NBA or NFL. You know, every black female is not going to go to the WNBA, and that's true. But again, I go back to my original statement. Then what else?
Then what else
can we do?
Yes.
If you look at this past year, we had the privilege of seeing another movie get brought out that kind of brought history to the big screen in the form of Hidden Figures.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that story was made real for a lot of people. I love the fact that you had a lot of groups taking young ladies in, because you know there's an emphasis on science.
What up, Troy?
And I think that when we start making movies like that a part of the internal cultures of our communities, because think about it, we oftentimes as black people celebrate our history.
Yeah.
It is a rich and storied history.
Yes.
But that history wasn't filled with just athletes and entertainers. As a matter of fact, those athletes and entertainers were able to latch on to what was already there. So when you look at the civil rights movement, for example, to use a more recent time, those athletes were able to gravitate towards something that was already in existence, the collective experience of black people.
Right.
Nowadays, I think there's been a disconnect, because while we collectively know that there are issues in our community, we're not collective in our approach to addressing them.
Yeah.
So our kids are just as disconnected because we haven't connected the dots for them. We've sheltered them in a lot of ways from the harsher side of reality, and we push them to believe that they can achieve anything, which is a good thing, but we're not practical in that.
Right. Well, you can achieve anything in athletics because you're African American, so you probably be fast.
Right.
Like, and that's what me as a teacher, that's the stuff that grinds my gears. Like, it's like, oh, well, I'm really fast on this playground, so I'm gonna be Usain Bolt. No, you're not, son. That's not gonna happen.
But you can't even spell your name within 30 seconds.
I'm saying, right? I'm saying, like, that's really it. I want to go back to your point about the movies, though, the entertainment. I went to see Marshall when it came out because I'm a biography nut. Right. If there's a historical movie about a figure from the past, like, I've probably seen it. I just love movies like that. Marshall came out, so I was like, okay, cool. People are woke these days and all this thing. So when I go into Marshall will be packed. Because I know Girls Trip just came out like 3 weeks before that. Right. And Girls Trip was the #1 movie in the country for like a month almost. Right? So I was like, Marshall will be packed. I walked into Marshall, I think it was 7 o'clock at night. I went to Myrtle Beach. Me and my wife went. I said, oh, we have to get there early because we have to get our seats. Not only were we able to get seats, we were able to sit anywhere we wanted to in the theater. There were about 20 people in that theater by the time the movie started. And it was such a great story. Did he have a basketball in his hand? Nah. Did he, was he singing? Nah. Did he play an instrument? Nah. He was just a dude who went everywhere and fought everything for the good of the people he believed in.
But what else was he? He was an intellectual.
Yes.
And that's the thing, when you start talking about education and you start tying it to black people. For as much as we look at our existence here in this country, and I think there are people who want to see warriors. And I get it. You know, there are some situations where you want people that's going to go out there and bam, fight the battle. But as a people who represent a very persecuted minority, our greatest strength has oftentimes been our intellect. The intellect of our leaders who were able to assess the situations and figure out strategies for us to follow.
Yeah.
And I think that, unfortunately, that has not translated into a collective mindset in our culture. We think if there's something wrong, then you got to get out here, talk some smack, yell at some folks, you know,
cut somebody out.
Get a crowd behind you, and then that solves the issue. But all that ever does is just give maybe a short-term, I guess you can say, relief to people venting. That's it. But who's sitting there truly thinking? Like, if people realize that the architects of the civil rights movement were individuals who you never heard their name. You know, the civil rights movement is oftentimes hung around the necks of people like Dr. King, you know, Reverend Jesse Jackson, a lot of males. It's very male oriented. But in actuality, it was our women who were truly the foundation and framework. Dr. King was able to do what he did because his wife was able to maintain their household. Malcolm X was able to do what he did because his wife was able to maintain their household. People look at the Black Panthers and say, oh, you know, that's a great group, you know. But what folks don't realize, they were educated brothers. Huey P. Newton had a PhD. He was a member of a Greek fraternity. People don't realize that. But what they also don't realize is that the majority of the membership of that organization was women. Why am I bringing that up? Well, because fast forward to 2017, education for us is now even more an asset that we need to grab hold of. But what we see in education, I'm pretty sure you see the same thing, is that you have more females who are ascending the educational ranks with success than you do males. So what does that mean? That means that our fiercest leaders, the ones that will probably be on the front lines, are inevitably going to be female. While I have no doubt in their abilities, it's time for us as men to step our intellectual game up.
I agree.
And fight alongside them. For the betterment of our community.
Wow, that's a lot, man. That's heavy. And you're absolutely right. And especially when we're talking about these things, and of course, we got all these allegations of sexual harassment and things like that, and the mistreatment of women, just generally. And when you say things like, you aren't the first person to tell me about, you know, about the women having that forefront role in the civil rights movement. My good friend, my bro Sam Bellamy, was telling me about this nurses union that had a great deal to do with the civil rights movement. Septima Clark, you know, the expressway downtown is named after her. Like, people like that who, like you said, don't get that recognition. You don't hear Dr. King, Malcolm X, Septima Clark. Like, that's not how it works. You know what I mean? Fannie Lou Hamer.
Ella Baker. We talk about these women in hindsight, but not only were they powerful women in their own right, they had an intellectual approach. They were able to marry the emotional pain of struggling through the civil rights movement, where death oftentimes could be right around the corner, where discrimination and persecution were as normal as you going to the bathroom. But they still understood that they had to use their intellect to help our people collectively get out of that situation. In a lot of ways, the civil rights movement was a study in the intellectual capacity of Black people to get, because if you think about it, as a people, we've never truly sat down and thought about our intellectual capacity here in America. I think we're always shoved with this data and the statistics saying that, you know, we're not on the level that we should be. Even though a lot of times that data can be skewed and it can be arbitrary. Our kids see that. But imagine this. In Charleston, downtown Charleston especially right now, there's an issue with gentrification, right? Okay. From a, I guess you can say, career standpoint, how many of our kids ever say, hey, I want to be a real estate developer? When you were in school, how many people you know said, I want to be a real estate developer?
But what I am seeing is a lot of people go through other careers and then say, now I want to go into real estate. But there's nobody that I know one kid in BGC. Antoine Hoskins, if you watching, I'm talking about you, B. He told me, to Mr. Lewis, I'm going to be a real estate developer. I want to sell real estate. He said I want to develop it. Right. He said I want to sell it. I want to get into the real estate game, and that's awesome because he's only in 8th grade.
Right.
So that's the only kid.
And here's the thing. But do we as a people, as a community, how many black real estate developers do you know?
Developers in that.
I know several black real estate agents.
Mm-hmm.
But why is that important? Because when we look at what's happening, not just in downtown Charleston, but throughout the Tri-County area, as well as America, real estate development takes place.
Mm-hmm.
But oftentimes the people leading it don't look like us.
Yeah.
So when we start talking about education, I also feel that we need to be practical. I tell folks, I'm not talking about our kids graduating with honors to go off to college just to become a part of the degree mill process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about how can we shape education as an individual benefit to our young people.
Wow.
When we look at our communities, we can see a lot and complain about a lot. But like for all those kids who say, I want to be the next LeBron James or Kyrie Irving, I oftentimes say, okay, well, hold on. LeBron James and Kyrie Irving are both professional athletes making a lot of money. Who helps them manage their money?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who helps them with their contracts?
Yeah.
I remember I had a friend that I graduated from school with who actually got drafted in the NFL, and I remember I had the opportunity to look at the book. It's a binder, and it's like this thick.
Mm-hmm.
With everything in it. Pretty much, when you think about it, athletes don't really have a chance to manage their own lives. Mm-hmm. There has to be someone there to help them manage those aspects. Our kids never think about that because nobody's ever told them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, for every LeBron James, there's got to be an accountant. There's got to be a business manager.
Yeah.
There's got to be a lawyer. And these are things that our kids need to feel like they can be a part of. Also, like you said earlier about having a business, we also need to encourage our kids to look at their immediate communities and see opportunities for them. It's amazing to see all these new business startups that are starting up with individuals who are young, white, and I don't begrudge them that either, but I'm like, how come our kids don't get that same opportunity?
Right.
As a community, we need to start wrapping our heads around that.
Yeah. So, I mean, what are some steps to take? I mean, because those sound like great solutions. I'm pretty sure, there's somebody watching saying, hey, that sounds like a great idea. How you doing, Lenora? What's going on, everybody? I'm sorry I didn't shout you out, but we're really deep in this discussion. Watching and saying, hey, those all sound like great ideas. How do we prepare our children for those types of realities?
Well, one of the things that we have to do is start utilizing the infrastructure we have. I'm a big believer in community, period. Mm-hmm. I was raised in a rural part of South Carolina called Allendale.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in Fairfax and Allendale. And I grew up with the mentality that I had to do something. And so I saw the people in my hometown graduate. They either joined the military, went off to college, or they got a job working in one of the local industries. Mm-hmm. But it was a concept of productivity. You had to work to get what you wanted in life. And so I've kept that mentality with me because I saw people around me, who were able to buy a home, buy a car, provide for their families, have some semblance of a quality of life. We have to, as a community, understand that we have to get back to establishing our own quality of life. Mm-hmm. We have to say what we collectively want, or even as individuals. As a father, I have a son, and I spend a lot of time with my nephews. I want them to see me not working myself to the bone, but being able to enjoy life as I work and enjoy time with them. Wow. Teaching them how to take advantage of opportunities now, as opposed to, working all their lives and getting to a point of retirement and then trying to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Because if your enjoyment comes at the end, what's the lessons that you learned up until that?
Right.
So I think if we get our kids to understand that they need to start planning their life, and I think that's what a lot of parents miss. Mm-hmm. My son is 7th grade, so now I'm talking with him about what he wants to do. I know for some people it can seem strange, but the reality of it is now, especially with the way the global economy is starting to fold in, our kids, especially black kids, they don't even have a lot of this stuff on their radar.
Right. I agree.
If a kid comes from a household where their parents are engaged and involved, they may have that opportunity. But for some parents who are working, trying just to provide the basics, they may not have the time, or in some cases, the capacity to start exploring that with their kids. And that's why I believe that from the school standpoint, we need to really look at what it is we're doing to help prepare kids for that next level. Not just, so to speak, to go to college,
right,
but for them to be able to have the wherewithal to say, well, this is what I want out of life, which is what I love about DGC and what you guys do with those young men.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, man. It's really, DGC is interesting because it makes me reevaluate myself a lot. It makes me reevaluate how effective we are. If you don't know, DGC is a Distinguished Gentlemen's Club, mentoring organization. We work with young men from 3rd through 12th grade, mastermind mentor, and we work with them. Our mentors reach out to young men weekly, and we do various events. We volunteer, do all kinds of things. But with that being said, I get that out of the way. If you're interested in more information, www.dgcmentor.org. Sorry, I had to get that. It always makes me look at these young men and say, how effective am I? This young man that I'm looking at, how much closer is he to actual success because of my presence in his life? How can I make this program more effective so that I can make this young man? I went to the National Mentor Summit in January, and one of the classes that one of the gentlemen spoke, it was an African-American gentleman, and what he spoke about was, he said, we put our Michael Jordans on the bench. He said, sometimes we get so caught up in trying to bring up the kids who aren't doing well that we leave our Michael Jordans on the bench. The kids that have that potential, who may be, okay, you're a straight A student, so like you don't need any help. No, if we take that straight A student and give him that extra push, he might become the next president of the United States. He might become the next CEO of the Microsoft. He might create the next billion-dollar idea. But if we just say, oh, well, you're good, we're gonna leave you over there, you're good, and we're just gonna work with the, like, we do that so much. So with my organization, I make a point of it with our organization. Shout out to Ricardo Perry. With our organization, what we try to do is make sure that we're not avoiding that kid, because that kid needs us too.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that, because there is this almost default to where you hear the gloom and doom reports so much that you will say, "Oh, we got to help the kids that can't read. We got to help. We got to help the kids that are at the absolute bottom."
Yeah.
And to a large degree, you should. But what people also have to understand is, I like to have a view of things in thirds. You have a third of your kids who will be at the absolute bottom. You have a third of your kids who will be in the middle, and you have a third of your kids who are what you would call your high flyers or high achievers. So all of them require attention, although it may be differing degrees. When we start looking at how we can change educational outcomes, I believe in this. At some point, you have to start recognizing and acknowledging the students who want it. That's a tough concept, especially for programs to do.
Yeah.
But it's the reality. It's, if you look at young men, and we'll use, say, a sports analogy. If you look at them as your team, and on your team, you may have some folks who are naturally gifted, high flyers. You may have some folks who are good journeymen. They will work at it. They're developmental talents. They will develop and give you their all, and it will contribute to the team. Then you have some kids who, they're on the team, they got some skill, but they don't feel like there's anything you can teach them.
Right. Yeah.
They're not putting in any effort.
Yeah.
You know, they feel like even if they don't do nothing, you're still going to chase after them. And unfortunately, we built up a climate and an environment where those kids are the kids that everyone goes after, because those are the kids that programs get money for.
Yeah.
Those are the kids that people can hitch their wagon to and say, oh, look, I brought that student up from absolute bottom to here. Yeah. Meanwhile, with high flyers, they're still flying, but your middle of the road kids, or your kids that actually would give you that effort if they only had a chance, they get ignored. So then what happens? Well, why should I as a kid try when I see you as a teacher or as an administrator always recognizing the kids who are doing the exact opposite of what you tell me to do?
Wow. Yeah. I see that every day. Wow.
And that's one of the biggest problems we have right now in our community. When we start talking with people about improving education. If you go look on your athletic teams, whether it be football season, basketball season, how many of those kids are honor roll students?
Not a whole lot of them.
Why?
Because they don't have to be.
Why?
Because society says you're talented. You don't gotta be smart.
So we say that. And remember now, athletes are oftentimes in the public eye.
Yeah.
You see the reports, you see the McDonald's, you see sponsors.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming to sponsor your honor club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Who's sponsoring the National Honor Society?
Mm.
Who's sponsoring your chess club? You don't see banners hanging in gymnasiums for your robotics team.
Wow. Wow.
So we say to kids indirectly and sometimes directly, athletic achievements, they're good. But you can run, you can throw 400 yards, you know, and maybe you can't read as well as you should, but we'll work on that because you're going to help us get in the playoffs or national championship. And again, that's not to knock any athlete.
Right, right.
But it's about balance. Life is about balance.
Yeah.
At the professional level, there are countless stories of athletes who made it all the way there. I'm reminded of, and many folks might not know him because he was definitely in my younger generation, Dexter Manley, who was a pro football player who couldn't even write his name.
Yeah, yeah.
This man made it all the way to the NFL, yet could not write his name. Now, mind you, he went through probably rec league, high school, college, and to the pros, but could not write his name. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's so much, man. Like, again, like a wealth of information. A wealth of information. You're absolutely right. I'm reminded of a story of something that I experienced. There was a guy at my school, and I'm not gonna say his name because that's not what we do. But great athlete. Great athlete, man. Like, I looked up to this guy. And made it all the way to senior year. And God actually was being offered scholarships. We didn't win the state championship that year. That was the year we didn't win the state championship. And then he stopped, like, coming to school. And it was like, but all you got to do is show up. You know what I mean? Like, we can't put our kids in a place where they think, well, if this athletic thing doesn't work out, I have nothing. That's what I fear. That's why discussions like this are important. We, people that look like us, have to have this discussion. And we have to have a discussion with our children. I'm praying. I know there's a lot of jargon and stuff that was used, but I'm praying that there's some parent that watched this show that said, okay, I have a 2-year-old son that I'm not reading to every night. I need to go read to him. I have a 4-year-old daughter who's might be starting 4K soon. Maybe I need to start doing some stuff with them. All right, I want to, and I'm trying to wrap, but I want to end on this piece. I've worked in different schools. The difference I've seen in the achievement levels comes down a lot of times to parental involvement.
Exactly.
Parental involvement.
Exactly.
I say this a lot jokingly, but if you want to tell this, like, see the achievement of a school, go to a PTA meeting.
Yep. Go to it.
And that will show you the amount of active parents. Now, of course, are there parents that may not go to PTA meetings that are still active? Definitely. But the large percentage, the best gauge of that is to see the parents that show up at these, like, I'm telling you, it's night and day.
I would add, and sometimes, you know, I've gotten pushback when you start saying that, because people will say, well, folks have to work. And I get that.
Yeah.
Parent involvement also means having a relationship with your child's teacher or teachers, meaning they don't have to contact you all the time.
Yeah.
You form a relationship with them. My son has the benefit of myself and his mom, my ex-wife, and we both take a dual role in making sure that there is somebody represented at anything that goes on at his school, and proactively reaching out to his teachers to say, hey, What is it that we can do to help him? So it's not just showing up to your PTA meeting, although that helps, because ultimately the school can only do what it can do with the students that it receives. If it receives students that have not been prepared on how to learn, then it's going to struggle. There is no such thing as good schools versus bad schools.
Right, I agree.
There are schools that have strong school climate and cultures, and schools which need improvement.
Yeah.
If more parents take the role of going to see how they can help their kids and help out, and it may be something as simple as making sure your child's behavior is taken care of. I would wager 60 to 70% of the issues in many of these schools that people call bad are behavioral issues. If we start there and start emphasizing a standard of behavior in the classroom, I guarantee you many of our students would achieve, because lightly as you take it, in a classroom of 17 to 20, if you have 3 students who are disrupting the class at 5 to 10 minutes apiece, that's 30 minutes of instructional time that teachers lose trying to address behaviors that they didn't cause.
Wow. Wow. Again, so much information. We could do this for hours.
Right.
Like, we could do this for hours. But I know that we've been doing this for 51 minutes, and it's been a really good 51 minutes. But I want to respect the time of my viewers, and I want to respect your time as well. I want to end on this. First, I want you to be able to give, I want to ask you where does it, so you've got the research now, you've got the numbers. Where does it go from here?
2 weeks ago, there was a racial disparities report that was released at the College of Charleston through the Avery Research Institute.
College of Charleston.
Dr. Stacy Patton, wonderful, wonderful scholar, wonderful friend, someone who I met and actually had the chance to meet in real life, and who allowed me to help contribute to that report. But a couple of things in that report drove me to say I have to emphasize education in our community. In 2008, the report chronicles racial disparities from the year 2000 to 2015. In 2008, the median household income for whites was a little over $67,000, right? The median household income for blacks was a little over 31,000, right? So you can see the immediate disparity. In 2015, the median household income for whites was a little over 72,000. So about $5,000 increase in about 7 years. Median household income for blacks was a little over 32,000.
Wow.
So in the same time period, blacks' median household income only increased about 1,000. Now in that, you got educated folks. But why is that significant? For another statistical chart that was in that same report, the median household income required, median household salary required to purchase the median priced home in the area was $80,000, because the median priced home was $240,000. So you already see an issue. How are black people told they can get ahead in life? Through education. So now, if we're failing in education, and one of the most basic needs that we have is housing, and that's purchasing a home, it's said that the salary needed for a basic 2-bedroom apartment in Charleston is about $14, $15 an hour. I've read recent reports that said an hour to afford what is coming down the pipe now. So if we don't take education seriously as a community and start emphasizing not just achievement to go to college, but also financial literacy and our own perspective of community development, there's a lot of people that talk about the displacement due to gentrification, but we're not doing anything to stop that. And education is key. So unless we start getting into the non-traditional fields that can yield the higher income, the higher salaries, we can create an entrepreneurship class, a creative entrepreneurship class that can compete and garner the type of dollars to build a stronger economic infrastructure. We as a people here will lose out. It's already rumored, according to Forbes magazine, that by 2025, Black net worth will be at 0.
Wow.
So unless we start changing some things, unless we start changing the mindsets that we have, unless we start realizing that public housing is a benefit, not a right, public assistance is a benefit. Now I understand people have to have that. For a while, my family had to as well. But if you look at the political climate we have, that's not even a guarantee.
That's right. That's right.
So we're going to have to use our intellect to push us forward. And we have to emphasize to our kids, it's not just you sitting in a classroom, taking the test, getting an A.
Right.
This is preparing you for
Right. Yes. Yes. Wow. 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 So you have the stuff from you have the information from the diversity report. And is there a place that can be found? If someone wants to find that information,
it was on the Avery Research Institute's website. I also posted it on my page, but I also know that Charleston County Library System actually is providing, I think, 500 flash drives with the PDF document. The document is about 80 some odd pages, real in depth, and it breaks down everything from education, housing, employment. It talks about, the crime statistics. It talks about the racial makeup of the police departments, the school system, and it's specifically for Charleston County. But Charleston County is one of your fastest growing counties in the state. And if anybody wants, if say they're not able to access it through any of those means, I'm more than happy to send them a copy via email.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I want. Do you have any parting remarks?
One, to thank you for bringing me on. Also, to thank you for emphasizing education at the grassroots level and not have it be something that's talked above the heads of folks, even though we did talk about a lot. And I also want to emphasize to the folks who may watch or watch later, education is about more than just A's and B's, SAT scores, college acceptance letters. It's about how we prepare our kids and ourselves to live and navigate the society we live in. Unfortunately, there are levels of education that our kids never get to because, unfortunately, we don't prepare them for that. And we have to change that, not just for the 21st century, but for the future beyond that. Our kids need to see education as a tool, as something that they should seek, the same way they seek, to become the next LeBron James or Kyrie Irving. We need to give them names like Neil deGrasse Tyson, Mae Jemison, Thurgood Marshall. We need to show them that the diverse nature of Black culture and history is filled with individuals who are educational and intellectual superstars. And we need to show them that they matter just as much as the current crop of athletes and entertainers.
Wow. Again, wealth of wisdom. Thank you so much, AJ. You are the man, dude. I could have done this for hours. Like, I really, like, y'all, if y'all know me, y'all know if I was at Starbucks, we would just be sitting at Starbucks doing this. And the way I try to do this, and I was telling him before I came on, the way I try to do my show, especially my guests, is I want it to be a discussion between friends.
Right.
Now, this is my first time actually meeting AJ, but we've been friends on Facebook for a while.
Yes.
And I've always heard the things that he's been saying, and he's always been so in depth, and he's always come from a standpoint of not this is what I think, it's this is what I know. So you can agree or you can disagree, but I know this. Okay. So I wanted to get him, sit him down, and really pick his brain about the things that's going on in education. He works in the schools. I work in the schools as a teacher. So to hear that data matches up and correlates directly with the things that I've been saying in my mind and out loud for quite some time. It's been amazing, and I look forward to having more discussions like this. I would love to try to put together a panel, an education panel, to have a discussion like this and make it an even broader spectrum. And as always, I want to say this. I know I'm an African-American male, and all my guests up until this point have been African-Americans. I'm looking for my Caucasian brothers and sisters, my Asian brothers and sisters, my Hispanic brothers and sisters to come in and enjoy these discussions. We can't have, we can, like, a rising tide floats all ships. It floats all ships, all right? So we all have to come to the table. If we care about the collective community doing better, then we have to come together for the discussions. So with that being said, thank you again. I really appreciate it. This has been Real Talk with ReZsaun. This is Wednesday night. As you know, Sunday nights at 7 o'clock, I do my live show. I have several topics to talk about. We will be discussing sexual harassment in the workplace and beyond, all right? My fellas, I don't know if we just don't know what constitutes sexual harassment or what, but we got to talk.
Keep your hands to yourself.
Hey. So we're going to get into it on Sunday. We're going to have some tips. My wife will be back, Latoya. We'll be talking about LeBron James putting his money where his mouth is when it comes to Akron schools.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about some great things. And the Grammys announcements just came out. So I'm really excited about that and talking about those things and many other things. And if you enjoyed this show, and if you enjoyed this discussion, please reach out, find Anjene Davis. How can they find you, Anjene Davis?
I'm on Facebook, Anjene Davis. I also have an email address, ajdavis76@gmail.com. If you email me, if you want to know about the reports that I referenced, I can send you a copy. And I can also send you the link to my Facebook page in case you don't know how to spell my name.
Do you do like public speaking or anything like that?
If anybody asks me to speak at an event or whatnot, I'm more than happy to. I've done it, and I'm doing it. As a matter of fact, I'm making my rounds at some of the local Head Starts for CCSD for their parent engagement activities this month. So, yeah.
Wow. Dudes everywhere, man. Dudes everywhere. I'm going to be like him when I grow up. You watch. I got big plans.
Be better.
Big plans. Real Talk with ReZsaun. Thank you again so much for watching, guys. As I always tell you, this is a labor of love for me. This is something I do because I love it. I don't get paid for this, and maybe one day I will, or maybe one day I won't. But at the end of the day, it's all about changing lives and changing minds and starting discussions. Because at the end of the day, if a man doesn't stand for something, he'll fall for anything. Now that's real talk. Peace.